All right, so I think we're ready. And I know many people, we were discussing this before, and many people is busy these days. So I want to also say thank you to people who watches this afterwards, right? After in the recording. I know many people is following the webinar series afterwards. So welcome. I know we cannot see your interactions on the chat, but we appreciate your time and your interest. And for the folks who are here with us today, live. So let's have some discussions. Today we bring very interesting insights on the social justice matter, who for some, I include myself, in the past has been out of our radar as one of the concerns in the math classroom, and we all suffer from these inequalities that the system sometimes fosters, and I think training ourselves and our glasses to see inequalities and to see how math from its very design can address these issues is a very powerful use of our time. I just want to remind everyone, just in case there is someone new to the series, that we are doing this to reflect on the framework. Of course, last week we were with Harold and he kept saying, this is an appetizer. This is not a full explanation
Mhm.
of the framework because the framework is very long, very comprehensive, has a lot of examples. So don't take this as a enough to know everything on the framework, but as an appetizer to start defining a vision for our classrooms. We also want to support you in spreading the message in California and beyond, as we can see in the chat from many people having interest around the US and around the world. And then bringing some practical lens to the framework, right? So some discussion on what does the framework look like when we implement those ideas in our classroom. And to do that, we have a dream team. We had a very great opening with Kathy Williams from UCubed. Then we had Peter Lijedal with myself discussing on open and engaging tasks. Last week, we discussed with Harold around multilingual learners, and we gave some tools to help those kids thrive also in our classrooms. And today, in the fourth out of 6 sessions, we have Ma Bernadette with me today, and I'm very happy. Ma Bernadette, hello. Welcome. Thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us. Next week, we will have a conversation with Cecilia Dimas on assessment. And then for June the 5th, we will see how we end. We will discuss about leadership and how to implement this change from a more general perspective rather than the classroom. But we might bring you some surprises in the last session, right? And just opening with some words about Ma Bernadette, who is today our guest, right? And you know me, right? And I don't need much more introduction if you have been following the series, but just a quick word for the new people in the room. I am Albert. I am one of the authors and researcher at Innovamat. Today is not about Innovamat, but Innovamat is a math organization that comes from Spain. That's where my accent is coming from, and that has been helping schools all over the world, trying to bring more mathematics that are richer, that are more centered on conceptual understanding and building mathematics that makes sense to the kids and helps them think around math. And we arrived to the US a few years ago, and we're learning a lot. And we are deeply aligned with what the framework in California has to say. And Ma Bernadette, so I'm gonna introduce yourself. You have an amazing curriculum, so it's hard to keep track of everything. Ma Bernadette is the president of the California Mathematics Council, right? So it's a position, right, leading the council of teachers that are doing math in their classrooms, right? And it's a position very to the ground, right? A position that allows you to talk with many people around California and work with them and be on the field. You have been also working on the framework in 2003. What was the first one? 2003?
Uh, Sometime in 1999, and then we have the 2013. That 2013 and 2023 was where I
Okay,
was
and
involved.
so you have a lot of experience with new frameworks and new implementation of the framework, right? And I think that expertise is very welcome. And then you also have a lot of expertise in the matter that we are discussing today, right? The social justice lens and perspective. And one of the things to me that has been a learning that might sound obvious to you because you are the expert on this is that Social justice is not an addition, it's not an add-on, a thing that we do at the end. Oh, yeah, by the way, social justice. No, 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 no. Social justice has to be at the center when we design activities, when we think of our kids. So today we're going to give you some reflections on some tools, and we want to hear from you as well, and listen from you and read you what you have to say on the chat, right?
Yeah.
All right. So what challenge brings us here, Bernadette? Because we all know that social justice is needed in the classroom, but can we like put some light on where the issue comes from? What's your take on the challenge that we are facing in our classroom, specifically in California, but I think it's general in the US and in the world.
Well, there still is inequities in terms of our students receiving high quality instruction in mathematics, Albert. Therefore, that opportunity gap really exists. And it's really is so also overwhelming that our students who come from poor or who lived in neighborhoods of concentrated poverty is also getting less and less services. And so that also shows in our CASP or our SPAC scores, in which our marginalized groups are not meeting those mathematics standards. And that persists all throughout when they go to college. So, yeah.
So these little, not so little inequalities,
Yeah.
the problem
Big
is that they
one.
also spread a long time, right? And they are not fixed after a few years, right? So they keep growing and growing and growing, and we can see in the data that students that are not in the most common area of the population, so students that are at the margins of what we consider the most common in our classrooms are always the ones that suffer the most from these inequalities, right? I was yeah, some team member at Innovamat, Tina Shea, recommended me a book that is like Algebra is not for black people, which was a book that to me coming from Spain was
Yeah.
like how can
How
those two things
come?
be
Yeah.
related, right? But then you read the data, and we're all mathematician mindsets here, right? So when you read the data is very concerning, right? So yeah, there's a big challenge, and today probably we cannot cover all the sources of these inequalities, but we can give you a few reflections thanks to the framework and some frameworks that and some books that we want to share with you on what can we do in our classrooms to mitigate a little bit this challenge.
And Albert, before I get to the story as well, I know
Yes.
in this room we also have partners through the California Mathematics Council, such as Todos, and Mathematics for All, who has been um, advocating for the voices of our marginalized our students and communities. And their book, The Anti-Racist Mathematics, is important to also elevate, to see the realities that our communities who have been underserved really is trying to elevate in terms of improvement of achievement, not only achievement, but the quality of life that we have. Just Equation also has been a huge partner for the California Mathematics Council, and they have been releasing a lot of research, studies, and open ed to wake us up to then truly fight for our teachers as well and community. So that has been so amazing. And of course, Benjamin Banneker Association and others. And those have been the Californians Together, English Learner Success Forum, and many, many, many more, which I might not be able to share with you. But you're right about the existence of these realities. So now the question is, so now what, right? What could
Yeah.
we do to
And I
truly.
love what you say about waking up, because it's not that we need to feel guilty for not seeing this before. It's not like looking bad. It's okay. There is a challenge. You might not be aware if you never experience it yourself, right? Because sometimes we only see our realities, and that's understandable. But once you see these issues, once you see these gaps, once you see these inequalities, it's really hard to look away, right? You need to act, you need to change, right? And when you open this door, there is no coming back. And I love it because it gives you a lot of insights that enrich your classes and your math instruction, not only for those kids that are in the margins, but for everyone, which is the beautiful side of it, right?
Thank you, Albert. Thank you.
Okay, can we read a
So,
story? Story time?
yes, storytelling time. Okay, so friends, before I'm going to read the story though, Albert, would you like to share a little bit of a background of the story that I'm going to read to everyone else this
Yeah,
afternoon?
I will try to avoid spoilers, so I'll keep it quick and short. This is a story we created with our team at Innovamat. Well, I was about to spoil what the grades this story is about, but let's keep it open, right? And
Yes.
what I only have to say is that, as you see in the picture, it's about triangles, right? So it's a little story that we created to introduce a series of sessions on geometry, on flat geometry, and around triangles. And we will see what connects this little story to the matter that we're discussing today, social justice. But I don't want to spoil anything. So let's just know that this is opening some sessions on triangles. Let's see.
All right. Thank you, Albert.
We're ready?
So we are ready. So, friends, I'm going to read this story with you. And as I'm reading this story, I would like for you to kind of like reflect how the story resonates with you. Okay.
I'm ready.
Once upon a time, there was a very small town where segments of different lengths lived. It was Tuesday, and they were celebrating Segment Day. In the village school, of course, they also celebrated that joyful and colorful day. To surprise the segments from all classes, the teachers threw a party in the playground. But was it really a party? The short segments didn't want to play with the long ones, and the long ones didn't want to play with the short ones. So they danced in groups, each class in its own corner of the playground. In the blue group, there were two segments dancing together. As they were dancing, they got closer and joined at their ends. Wow, nice point you made, a classmate said. That point is called vertex, said another. Do you think we could make more vertices?
Hmm.
As they didn't know, they decided to try it out. Oh, said one segment, we've made that shape that has three sides and three vertices. Do you remember what it was called? Something like, what was it? That's it! Triangle!
Hmm.
As there was such a commotion, word spread and all the other classes also started to play at making triangles of a single color. Cool! However, after a while, one of the orange segments started to get bored, making the same triangle over and over. So he thought, would it be possible to make triangles with different segments? Would segments from the other classes want to try it?
Hmm.
Yeah, he was embarrassed to ask the longer segments on his own. So he asked a friend for help, and together they headed for the purple segments. Hello, do you want to make a triangle with us? A triangle with you? A purple segment replied smugly.
Hmm.
That would be ridiculous. And they started to laugh. So one of the orange segments started crying and had to be consoled. You are being ridiculous, another purple segment said to the smug segment. I think it's a great idea. Would you like to try it with me? After a few brief introductions, they got down to work and were joined at the ends. Oh! Exclaimed a yellow segment who was watching and wanted to try too. Wow, said a green segment. That's a great idea. Then other interested segments began to come over. What's going on? What's going on? Said some of them. What are you doing? Said others. The word was spreading. Little by little, I set about making very different triangles. And thanks to the brave orange segment, they made new friends. After a while, a blue segment had an idea. What would happen if a very long segment formed a triangle with two very short segments? They tried it with two orange segments, but oh no, they didn't manage to make a triangle. You can make many different kinds of triangles, said a blue segment watching from afar, but there are some that are impossible. For example, if one of the segments is longer than the other two together. But come on, don't be sad. If you want, all four of us can try to form a shape. Oh, you made a quadrilateral, said the teacher. A what? A blue segment said. Okay, let me pronounce this correctly. A quadrilateral. There you go. It's made up of four segments of any size. And that's how the segments from the school celebrated that special segment day. They discovered that the little ones, even though they are small, can also have good ideas. And that it's okay if we play with friends that are different. Sometimes it's even more fun being different colors. The end.
Awesome.
All
Wow.
right. So I
I,
hope
I,
you
I,
like good friends. Yes. Thank you.
yeah, I love how you read it. I mean, so it's very intentional. I loved it. I loved it. So now I'm speechless, but I hope the audience is not, right? Because this was not just story time and enjoying how a wonderful reader Bernadette is. It was about reflecting, right? So you were asking this question. You were warning them. Don't get too much into the story. Keep half of the brain thinking on what are we doing here, right?
Yeah, Albert. So, friends, and in the chat, we would love to hear what resonated with you when I was reading that story, The Friendship Triangles. What's coming to your mind? Was there a
Let's see.
moment, a character, an idea in the story that felt familiar or deeply moving to you? Does it remind you of something that you've done in class, in school, with students? Things like that. Please share in the chat.
For the moment, I think everyone is like me, speechless. But Sebastian is saying very interesting story. What did you find interesting, right?
Yeah.
What made it interesting to you, right? What resonated with you? Let's see. To me, and maybe this is a spoiler, but it's how connects both things, right? There is deep mathematical understanding here, and on a theorem that is a big theorem on how triangles are formed by segments, but
Mm.
at the same time that is being used to talk about diversity, right? So it's not an addition; it's at the core. Okay, people start to get. Uh,
Oh, yes.
Okay, I'm going to read some to you, Ma Bernadette, so we
Okay.
can reflect with them. Ramon says, as a student, I remember feeling different to other grades and ages, right? Especially when you're in the playground, everyone together, right? And you see the older ones there or the younger ones there, right?
And Ramon, I felt that too as a leader. In the scheme
Mm,
that I'm in, there's also that color coding in terms
yeah.
of the elevation of voices in those spaces. So thank you so much for sharing
And
that.
the labels, right? No, you are a principal. No, you are a teacher. No, you are a. No, we're all here together and we're all trying to figure things out together, right? we're more than just our position in a school. Nolan shares such, I assume, such an accessible way to think about triangle properties and the
Uh,
inequality theorem. That's the connection with math
I
that I was talking
know.
about.
I know. And Nolan, what do you think this story is being used for? What grade level do you think, Nolan?
That's I was almost spoiling that at the
I
beginning.
know, I know.
Okay,
Yeah.
Shakia says the ways in which vocabulary was introduced, right, in context,
Yeah.
was joyful and mathematically beneficial, right?
I totally agree with that too, Shakia, because in the story, we can always connect ourselves in the way that those words are used. It's just very, very accessible. Yeah,
I
thank you.
love how also the characters when they find a word that is like new to them, they
Yeah,
struggle at the beginning. A verti what, a try a what, right? And they oh, this is a quadrilateral. Oh, a
yeah.
quadrilateral. So it's very intentional in every time a new word is introduced, right? Jackie agreeing with Ramon, and then SEL meets mathematics, says Colby.
True, true. That's
It's
a
all
beautiful
together, right?
example of SEL meeting mathematics right
Yes.
there. Yeah.
Sebastian says it arouses curiosity and draws attention of students to what's going to be taught, right?
Mm-mm.
So as an opening.
True, true. Yeah.
What else? What else? What else? There was a mathematical theorem seamlessly waved into the friendship SEL theme, right?
True, Jackie. You're right. Yes. Yeah.
Erica says, I love that social differences were addressed in a mathematical lesson. Rich math content, work smarter, not harder, time to save, time to shift back to teaching subjects in conjunction, not in isolation. So
Correct.
embedded, right? It's not a trade off. It's not, okay, today is Monday, I do social justice. Tomorrow is Tuesday, I'll do math. No, right? It goes together.
It's weaved throughout, right? Yeah.
And Nolan answers your questions, Ma Bernadette, that you were asking him to guess the grade, and he says
Right.
way younger than 10th grade geometry, right?
You're right, Nolan, because the theorem, the inequality for triangle is in high school, right? Yeah.
The formalization, yes, but the natural exploration that we have in very younger ages when they are trying to form triangles and they suddenly find out that, okay, these three segments that I have do not form a triangle. Wait, what? I thought that the only thing I needed to have a triangle was three segments, any size, but that's not true, right?
True.
So
Yes. Yeah.
and then Kathy says, appreciated the risk some segment took the step into crossing boundaries to create new connections.
Mm-hmm.
It encourages curiosity, exploration, risk taking, right? And they ask for support. You know, the two little oranges go together to ask the
True.
bigger ones, which typically happens in a school setting, right? It draws
True.
attention to different measurements are going to be met, and all groups are
Mhm.
needed to make the lesson complete. So all voices matter. If we only have blue or purple, we don't have the full perspective, and we would not have discovered the theorem or this
Mhm.
inequality idea without having different colors. So everyone is needed to discover things, right?
And the idea of that relationship and community building as well, Albert, is all embedded in the story. And the idea as well is to bring out those SEL themes, as what was mentioned here, to then truly elevate that seamless connection of the things that we are trying to promote in terms of inclusion, in terms of community building, and others. Yeah.
Hmm. And maybe we can go to the last one. Jackie says the story time is a non-threatening way of presenting knowledge. I love
Mm-mm.
this expression of non-threatening, right? It's a safe space. It's a story. It's not
Right.
happening to us. It's happening to the characters, right?
True, true.
Yeah, I love that one. Okay. I think of course not always you cannot have every single mathematical content presented in this way. It's very hard to always connect everything to this, but every time you have the chance like this one, it's worth taking it because it makes a
Mm-mm.
huge difference. And I know you had two more questions here, right?
But some of them have been answered too,
Yes.
Albert.
I love that.
So,
Yes, yes,
yeah.
yes, yes.
So
Like
thank you
how
so much for sharing all the things that you were thinking about the story, the friendship triangles.
exactly. And the patterns that we have been observing. And and I'm sorry to be this person in the room who draws us back to reality, right? And talk back to the framework. But it's important because we were discussing the five components. We have been, if you've been following the series, you know that this is probably the central idea of how the framework deploys or is deployed or is willing to be deployed. And so these five components, big ideas, open tasks, social justice, questions and conjectures, reasoning and justification. Today, we are talking about social justice, but what I love is that it's not independent from the other ones, right? Because big ideas and this going deep with math connects to social justice. Open tasks allow everyone to be invited to the party and have a different strategy, which is also related to social justice. If you keep questioning your students and asking them to conjecture and predict what will happen, that also invites more people to the conversation and not just the ones that are traditionally benefited from a traditional setting. And then if you prioritize the reasoning and the justification over having it right or wrong at the end, so more about the process and the thought process, that is also connected to social justice. So to me, social justice is at the center. It's number 3 out of 5. It's in the middle, but it also is in the middle somehow, right? It kind of benefits from all the other components. I love that. Okay, so let's ask this question. And I think you can now scan. Instead of using the chat, we will use another tool. So we keep um, asking you to change and so no one is distracted or sleeping. So please, like if this was a Menti, right? I don't know if you're more familiar with Menti. We were discussing this before. This is a Slido, but you can just scan this QR code or go to the website via your phone or your laptop, wherever you're following this session, type in this code, and please ask, and we will be gathering these answers. What does teaching towards social justice mean to you? And after this, we will explore what it means to us, and we will be sharing also our ideas, but we want to hear from you. What does teaching math towards social justice mean to you? Many ideas have been already flying above us through the story and all the interactions that we had so far. But let's see. What is teaching towards social justice? No pressure. We're not changing the Wikipedia definition with your answers. Don't worry, no pressure. So let's see. We have an emoji of someone thinking. And then we have treating students fairly. What else? What else? Student empowerment. That's another one.
Yeah.
Addressing issues of power. So
Yeah.
again, empowerment. I'm not adding any comments so far, just reading them. But then, Bernadette, I'm very interested in your take on these ones. All students
Oh,
doing grade
yeah.
level math. All students and capital letters, all of them.
Mhm.
Cultivating restorative practice and mathematical identity and agency.
hmm Going beyond teaching content. That's also, yeah.
So the mathematical practices, right? And this
That's
mathematical identity.
identity. Yes. Everyone deserves to feel they are capable to use and enjoy math, especially that enjoyment of math, Albert.
Exactly.
Yeah. Regardless of race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, gender identity, zip code, can access
Zip code.
and excel in mathematics. Yeah, true.
Yeah. And sometimes I find myself thinking in an old-fashioned way, if you want. But one of the biggest discoveries I did like 10 years ago when I started my journey in math education was that such a thing as I am not a math person is not a
Mm-mm.
thing. There's no evidence. You can have some learning difficulties. You can have some things that maybe ask that you approach math slightly different or in a different pace, but there is nothing in our brains that makes us not suitable for math, right? Everyone
Mm.
should be enjoying math. Everyone should be learning math, and we don't need to hold up this excuse of no, I am not a math person. No, there is no such a thing as being a math person.
And it's so interesting what you mentioned, Albert, that everyone should be enjoying math, but that there is a certain, in the journey of our students, mathematics experiences in the classroom, that there comes a time when those spaces provided to them is hampering their joy, their creativity in doing mathematics. So it's also is for us educators and teachers and families as well, and community partners, to find ways to bring that joyness and happiness in those math experiences that our students are having in the classroom. Yeah.
And it's their right, right? It's their right as a student
Mhm.
to have these opportunities in front of them. So address social issues, hold all students to high expectations. Oh, that's a whole thing, right? The
Mm-mm.
expectations that many teachers are not aware that your expectations on the kids are very, very, very important and very, very influential on what they do and what they think they are capable of doing.
Mhm.
If you
Mhm.
expect them to fail, it's much more likely that they will fail, right? If you expect them to thrive and you believe in them, that is very transformative. And it starts in you as a teacher.
Mhm. Mhm.
Asset-based thinking, equity,
Yeah.
inclusion, UDL.
Yeah. And so it's true, Albert, that as we try to infuse our kids to think, I can do math, that's halfway their success to starting to find ways to find mathematics as a joyful moment in their journey.
Hmm. And some teachers, I don't know in your experience, Ma Bernadette, on the field in California, but in my experience, many teachers also feel sometimes that they are not a math person or that they are not good at math. So that is also a thing that we need to fight against, right? As teachers, and try to get rid of that feeling and say, hey, there is no such a thing as being or not a math person. Maybe your backpack of experiences makes you feel that you're not a math person, but so I'm not judging the feeling. You might feel that, but there's not such a thing that makes you good or bad at math. It's just your story, and you have time to change it, right? And it's in your hands to change that because kids can feel that, and kids can feel how you feel about math,
True,
right?
true. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we could be here forever. You wanna add you wanna add anything else?
I think, yeah, we'll see what we can share, Albert, in terms of some mathematical ideas and strategies to truly um, surface what teaching towards social justice or teaching mathematics for social justice really mean. And I would like to share this with you. I know I have the book with me, The Teaching Math for Social Justice, published by NCTM in 2012. And this has resonated so much with me that teaching for social justice is the underlying belief that mathematics can and should be taught in a way that support our students, using mathematics to challenge the injustices of the status quo as students learn to read and write their world. The last one really resonated with me because for student empowerment is for students to truly read and write their worlds, right? Oftentimes we adults are making those decisions on their behalf, but let
Yes.
us be, their partners to ensure that they are having that, again, joyful mathematics experiences in the classroom.
Yeah, because math is a way of seeing the world. I love that connection to the broader perspective of math. Sometimes we see math in a very narrow way, like calculations or geometry. Or no, math is a way of living in the world and an attitude, right? The mathematical practices really embody this. So I connect with one of the answers, which was teaching beyond content, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not just a list of things to learn. Math is a way of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we need to connect this way of life with the social justice that we all want in our worlds. Okay.
And I think in addition to that too, Albert, are all these components in which we really are advocating for students to see themselves as competent mathematicians. That identity and agency weaved into their um, um, ways of doing math, right? The
Mm.
the benefits from their cultural knowledge, their lived experiences, their linguistic assets. Yes.
That connects with the last session we did with Harold, right? The linguistic
Yeah.
assets, seeing that as an asset. And okay, oh, how do you say this in your language? Oh, this is a word connected to the Greek one, right? I remember always that the kids that came from Spanish, which is my experience, right? Have it easier when it comes to relate some of the words in geometry because they are closer to the Greek word that rather than in English. So using that, for instance, it's a very specific example, but using that as an example of how speaking in another language or coming from another culture might help you also enrich the conversation in the classroom, right?
Yeah, one example, Albert, is that we Filipinos is a different way of approaching addition and subtraction. So
There you
when
go.
my kids came here to the US, it was, some were not accepted as potential answer, but they got the answer. It's
Yeah.
those methods that really is trying to showcase where their processes or their solutions are coming from, and that's cultural for us. So,
And seeing that as a thing, a rich thing in the classroom, instead of avoiding it, embracing it and say, okay,
yeah,
let's
yeah.
see how you did it. And let's try to, so the other kids that don't have that background can try to guess, oh, what is
Hmm.
he doing? What is she doing? What are the steps? Oh, what is she thinking? Where is this coming from? And
Yeah.
using that
Mhm.
as an environment to develop these skills and this mathematical competency, it's very rich. And the last one, I love the last one because many times in my experience, the speech around social justice is very focused in one and two. And sometimes, I'm not saying now today or anyone in the audience, but
Mhm.
sometimes I've felt, I don't know if that's your experience, that we forget a little bit the last one, right? Especially with the younger kids.
Yeah.
But it's important to use math also to read, as you said, to read the world and act on social issues, right?
Hmm.
Water access, racial equity, environmental justice, right?
Yeah. Yeah. True.
So it's important to close the circle, right, at the end and go back to the world and say, okay, how math helps me understand these statistics that is telling me, um, I don't know, the amount of surface that was burned, for instance, in the terrible fires in Los Angeles last
Yeah.
year, right?
Yeah.
For instance. Okay, now, we wanted to share with you two tools, and this is not a comprehensive list that, like, okay, with these two tools you have everything. No, Bernadette was quoting tons of resources that many people has been working, but it's true that in the past few months I had the chance and the luck to meet some great authors and personalities who have been working on tools that complement or that enrich this speech around equity, social justice, and universal design for learning. And I wanted to focus in these two tools, the impact of identity in K-8 math, teaching, rethinking. And I love that the word rethinking is in both titles,
Hmm.
rethinking equity-based practices by Maria Guerre, Karen Mayfield, Ingram, and Danny Bernard Martin. And then on the right side, we have Rethinking Disability in Mathematics by Rachel Lambert, right? And again, rethinking, right? And it connects to UDL in math, right? And what I love about this is that, as I said at the beginning, this is not an extension or an add-on that you add to your lessons. It's the very design of what you do in the classroom, so that not only the kids that need it are invited, but everyone is invited. It's not a trade-off. It's not I
Hmm.
am taking care of this group of kids and then forgetting about that other group of kids. No, 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 no. This is about embracing an environment where everyone is invited to the party,
Hmm.
like the triangles.
True, Albert, and I can make these connections too because, as you can see in both books, they truly put emphasis on our students' identities, our identities, that knowing ourselves really well and our the assets and the talents that we bring into the classroom is really should be able to maximize to do those maths. So I truly appreciate how identities are also um, you know
Yeah.
promoted and message in both books.
So maybe we can use the last 30 minutes that we have. I think we covered pretty much our vision, our thoughts
Mhm.
around this. And of course, this is just an appetizer. always quoting this idea by Harold. But I wanted to share a few ideas, practical ideas, and we now are good to go. Just let's take a look on these 5 equity-based practices from the book. And of course, this doesn't substitute the reading of the book, which is very much recommended. But we will be exploring some examples on going deep with math, which is the first equity-based practice, leveraging multiple mathematical competencies, affirming mathematics learners' identities, challenging spaces of marginality in the classroom, right? And drawing on multiple knowledge sources, right? And I love reading, it was just pure chance, but reading these 2 books more or less at the same time to us at Innovamat was the parallelism, right? The connections between the 2 sides of the coin were super, super, super useful because on the left side, we can have like more of a general equity-based practice. And then on the right side, we have the principles that allow you to design classroom situations, classroom environments where everyone is invited. And those principles are 6: supportive environment, meaningful math, multimodal, so different representations, right, in your classroom, time in core ideas, which connects beautifully with the California framework and the big ideas. 5 is understanding self as a math learner, which connects to affirming the identities, right? So the breaches between the 2 sides are very, very obvious. And I love that. And last but not least, this feedback that we give to the kids needs to be equitable, right? Needs to be useful and meaningful for every kid that we have in the classroom. Okay, so if you are good to go, Ma Bernadette, what we could do
Yep.
is explore in the last 30 minutes of the session, explore these 5 equity-based practices and the connections with UDL math, right? Through
Yeah.
some examples. Yes?
Yes.
Sounds like a
Let's
plan. Okay.
sure.
So number 1 is going deep with math, which I summarized it in 3 points. I hope that the authors forgive me for reducing this into three snippets. But number 1 is promoting depth over breadth, right? Emphasizing reasoning, debate, and multiple strategies, and validating student thinking through justification and proof, which connects very much with some of the instructional principles that the framework also addresses, right? And the connections that going deep with math has to the UDL principles, to me, were like, or to our team at Innovamat, were the multimodal, right? The multiple representations that allow you to see an idea, a core idea in math in depth. And then the number 4, invest time in core ideas, right? That's the deep understanding of essential math concepts. So at Innovamat, we are obsessed to promote this conceptual understanding, right? So we want the kids to not memorize just because. And of course, if you ask me, Albert, but the times tables, do we need the kids to know the times tables by heart? Well, I'm not interested in that. That is, of course, the answer is yes, but that's the outcome of a deep understanding of what multiplication is, right? For example. So that means that, I don't know in your experience, Ma Bernadette, but I remember myself being a student, and on Friday they told me, okay, these are the times tables. By Monday, I want them by heart.
No, that's not gonna
Okay.
happen.
Okay, I'm gonna try like a song, right? And I was like repeating like a song. But then it made no sense after a while. It started to make sense, of course, and I thrived in math. But many classmates didn't really grasp the meaning of multiplication. Okay, they just follow, and that's not going deep with math. And that superficiality was very, very the opposite of beneficial, right?
Yeah.
For those kids that were not understanding, right? So that's why going deep with math is an equity-based practice, because it is about everyone understanding what we're doing before we ask them to just memorize or move on, right? So let's see an example. Let's do this together, Ma Bernadette. And if people want to participate in the chat, what do you notice here and what do you wonder?
I'm noticing. Okay, let me pause. And
Yeah,
again, we invite our audience to please share your answers
yes,
as well.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Albert, I'm noticing different shapes. I can start.
Okay.
I'm
You're
noticing
you're
different
noticing different
colors.
shapes.
Yeah. I'm also noticing different colors, just like the friendship triangle earlier.
Okay, so
There are
colors and shapes.
colors and shapes and sizes too. There are small ones, there are big ones.
Oh,
So
and in the
what's
same
up with
sense,
that?
that's interesting because in the same sense that you say size, big and small, when I
Yeah,
say colors, what would you say after colors?
colors I see red, blue, yellow.
Okay, and after shapes?
Shapes I see circle, square, and triangle.
Okay, and now maybe talking to teacher, right?
Yeah.
What would you expect the kids to do if no command is given to them with these shapes? What do you think they would do? Some of them, of course, would just play. That's okay. Some of them would
Yeah.
make it maybe create some characters.
That could be, if
Hmm.
it's hands-on, I'll probably play with them,
Hmm.
right? And then sort them, categorize
Ah,
them, and others.
that's the key. And when you open the door to this, even without a prompt or with a prompt, that's also depending on your style as a teacher or the stage that you're teaching on and the focus you want to have. Kids naturally have the inner need to classificate, right? To
Oh,
classify. Classify? Is that the word in English? Classify,
uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
So they have this, and you said sorting them, right? Yes.
Yeah.
You give them these, and you will see that some of the kids start to make groups,
Yeah.
colors, sizes, shapes, right?
Shapes. Yeah.
And then this is just the opening, or might be the opening of this activity. And again, depending on the grade, you might be going deeper or not. Then I have the same shapes on the left, but I
Mm.
am showing now on the right some, what do you think this is? Let's
Mm.
see if people is participating. Also, no, everyone is very much following what we're saying. That's okay. But if you want to participate, the chat is open and I want to hear from you. Okay, what do you think we have on the right side of this slide now?
Right side? Okay, let me
Let's,
see. I see
yeah.
luggage.
Okay, luggage.
Luggages. And then maybe that's they're about to travel and they're about to pack
Yes,
the shapes.
yes.
About to that's a conveyor maybe. I don't
Ah, there you go. That's a conveyor. So it's, we were discussing about
know.
sorting. So this is,
Yeah.
you guessed
Ah,
right.
okay.
This is a conveying belt. Is that the, yes, conveying belt that is
Yeah.
going to sort depending on the labels that we have here, right? So for instance, looking at the top of the screen, we have a triangle and then we have some blue thing, right? A blue ball.
Yeah.
So what do you think this is going to do? It's going to
Okay, but
sort.
they're only in that one though. So how
Oh.
can I put those shapes onto the topmost?
Hmm. So what is happening here is that luggage, or in this case, these
Yeah.
shapes are
Yeah.
coming from this
Mhm.
left side. And then
Yeah.
when they arrive
Ah, okay.
there's a sorting machine that says, okay, are you a triangle? Okay, you can continue. You're not a
Mm,
triangle? Okay, then you go up,
got got it.
right? So here, one question that we could ask the kids is, okay, what do you think that what shapes will end on the top zone and what shapes will end on the lower zone,
So I
right?
love that kids have the experience to, on their own, understand what this traveling means, right? Because
Hmm.
I'm seeing
Hmm.
like, oh, that could connect my experience of traveling. But the question, Albert, is this: what if our kids might not have the idea of what this means? Well, I based my answer when you asked me about what do you see in this image from my experience because I've seen that.
Yes.
What might be something that we could do for kids who might not have that prior knowledge about a conveyor, about traveling, about all these different things that are in this image?
To, I don't know if you have an answer or you have an idea, but to me, there are many or some different things that several different things that you can do, right? One is use that experience that for sure someone in the classroom or even myself as a teacher will have to share that, right? Once I was in an airport and then this happens, or not even in an airport, it can be in a factory where some things are sorted somehow, right? Or you can link this to a movie or to a video, a little video. We have these little videos with the characters that introduce little stories like the triangles. So, and I want to hear also your thoughts here, but either you use the experience of someone in the classroom and leverage that as a source of knowledge, right? Or also you can use an external source of knowledge to connect
Mhm.
that with their experiences. Have you ever go with a luggage? Have you ever had to
Mhm.
pack things and sort them differently, right? So you
Mhm.
try to find the bridge, which is very difficult to anticipate because it depends on who you have in front of you, right?
Yeah. So I was able to ask you that question, Albert, because again, oftentimes the experiences that our students are bringing into the classroom are different, right? So I pose that because as a teacher for myself, thinking that if I'm going to present this in the class, I might be thinking of other resources to get them to understand what this image is all about, like a video of traveling, a video of conveyor, or things like that, right? Uh,
Absolutely.
because again, we are coming, especially for our, again, our marginalized communities, might not have these opportunities of traveling or understanding or experiencing all of these. So, um, um, bringing in those prior knowledge or bringing in those contexts will help us all understand what this image is all about.
Yes, and it also is a context that of course you can change if you
Yeah,
know your
yeah.
population, right? You can
Perfect.
you can
Yeah.
change the context and say, okay, no, my kids, for instance, I know my community and they the sorting thing will be more related to the kitchen when you sort like the
Yeah,
ingredients or
yeah,
so
yeah.
why not, right? This is a context
Yes.
that you can surround the mathematics with that makes sense to them. But what I love here is that with that context, we are able to go deep with math because in the first one, we're using this to classify in a positive way. In the second one,
Mhm.
we're using a non-property, which is a little more difficult, right? A non-square, which is harder to identify than a triangle. And in the last one, we are reversing the problem. We
Mhm.
have the classification, so we have to guess which were the labels.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that to me is a deep example or a good example of going deep with math. Because many times we do these kind of tasks on sorting objects. We give the kids the objects, sort them, and that's it. Okay, no, you can go deep and deep and deep, trying to reverse, trying to use negative properties, trying to ask the question the other way around. So this is the answer. What was the what were the labels here that sorted the objects at the end? So we're going deep into attributes such as shape,
Mhm.
color, and size instead of just doing an activity that superficially addresses these properties, right?
Mhm. And Albert, I can also bring this to um, higher grade level,
Oh yeah,
maybe for middle school and high school, knowing the ideas of scaling, right? Knowing the concepts or introducing the concepts of congruency, right?
absolutely.
And as what you've said, all the attributes of these different shapes, because along the line of geometry, geometry is a strand all throughout our standards from TK all the way to high school. So this has been a great example of geometry and embedded algebra in it, as well as
Yes,
statistics, because that's sorting, right? And potentially graphing based
yes.
off of those properties can also be part of that going deep into the math. And I know, Albert, we have so much to discuss, and it's 5:56. I
It's okay. It's
wonder.
okay. It's okay. There's no pressure.
Oh,
We're good. We're good. We're not just now exploring some examples, right? And Shakia says this activity reminds me of the card game Set, which is a wonderful
yes.
card game. I strongly recommend you that game. Is if you don't know it, it's a very mathematical game. Yes, I love that.
I
And it's about
love that.
sorting and
I love that
identifying
game too.
properties.
Yes.
Yes, 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 yes. So the key here is And I want to share with you one of the tips, and this is a very long text. I don't expect you to read everything, but this activity encourages students to analyze the properties of shapes at a conceptual level rather than merely identifying them, right, and sorting them. So students must think deeply about logical conditions. This is a triangle and blue. And this connects to computational thinking,
Mhm.
right? Beyond what we were saying. What do these shapes have in common? What do these shapes have as a difference? If this is the outcome, what was the input? Which is
Mhm.
also computational and algebraic thinking. So this is going deep and trying to find activities that cover what you want to teach or what you want your kids to learn, but in a
Mhm.
deep way, right? So they can go deep with math and they can get engaged through the context and through the thinking of the mathematics. Okay, I know we could be there for a while, but number two, leveraging multiple competencies, right?
Mhm.
Collaborative problem solving, valuing the diverse strengths. You were saying this, Ma Bernadette, from the Filipino heritage,
Yeah.
right? The kids
Mhm.
that have another algorithm use that as a strength, right? Instead of saying, no, 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 you have to do it this way. No, let's keep it open.
Yeah.
How do you do it? Let's try to guess what are you doing? And that is a
Mhm.
very fun game. I did that in elementary many times. When you have someone that knows a different strategy that comes from
Yeah.
home, you try to, okay, let's stop everything. Let's try to guess what is this strategy about. And this connects to UDL principles such as meaningful mathematics, right? That give students the choice,
Uh-huh.
and then the multimodal, right? That some kids are more confident with a visual approach, some are more confident with a verbal approach, some might be more tactile, right? So try to have a comprehensive different ways of going into a concept, right? This multimodal idea
Yeah.
by Rachel. Okay, and you don't need to, we don't need to do this as a students, because I think this will be very obvious. But I want to be also very mindful on that many things that we already do in our classrooms are teaching towards social justice, and let's put them in value, in that, let's value them as they are, right? So here we have money, right? We could ask how much money is there in total. And of course, this connects to addition of hundreds. Okay,
Mhm.
300, 200, that's 500. Yes, great. Then place 10 blocks, right? And kids know that these are hundreds, right? Composed by 10 uh, columns or 10 rows of 10. So these are hundreds as well. So it's again 400 plus 500, which connects to the money in the previous slide. So adding by hundreds. So kids, when we use manipulatives and we add this multimodal approach to math, it's not just because we are also helping kids that might struggle with the abstract idea to enter this concept in a more hands-on way. And this is probably very obvious for everyone in the audience, but not for that is less important. Keep this multimodal experience even in high school, right? That's a fight I have sometimes with high school traditional teachers that tell me, no, 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 manipulatives are for elementary. Wait, what? No, you can teach many things in high school with manipulatives, and we can
Yeah.
introduce. Of course, we need to go to abstraction. Of course, math in high school needs to go towards abstraction and go to more abstract ideas. But the starting point, it can be, bless you, it can be very hands-on. You can teach equations, system of equations, integration, derivatives, limits. You can do that through manipulatives. Why not? Or through visuals, right? So this connects to how we introduced, for instance, the addition algorithm, the traditional standard algorithm. So probably you can anticipate how this works. We represent the hundreds, the tens, and the ones on the top, and
Mhm.
then we add the ones, the tens, and the hundreds. So we have 9 ones, and then 120. That's the tens. And since we have 3 digits, this little one here is not a 10, it's 100. And therefore, that is what, since it's 1 digit more than what we would expect in the tens position, that is the one that goes up there in the standard algorithm. So we're trying to make sense. How many people
Mhm.
learns the algorithms just because, without making any sense? These visuals that I am sure that everyone in the audience is already using are very intentional as well from the social justice perspective.
Albert, I would like to add though that yes, and I think you are showcasing here the opportunity for professional development for our educators because we can have again the elevation of hands-on and the kinesthetics approach to mathematics, and
Yes.
so the opportunity to also provide professional development for our teachers is also critical in terms of elevating these multimodal approaches to mathematics.
Absolutely. Yes. And many people is already doing it, but sometimes we lack these glasses. Okay, this
Yeah,
is also teaching towards social justice. Keep doing it.
true,
Keep doing it.
true.
Very well. So this session offers multiple entry points to the standard algorithm using base 10 blocks, money, which by the way, I don't know if in your experience this is the truth, but in my experience, physical money is less and less relevant for students every year because physical money is disappearing from our society, right?
True.
And
Yep.
and there are some kids that, of course, some kids have seen physical money for sure, but there are some kids I have encountered some very young kids these days that no, that for them paying means going with a card or with your phone and doing beep. And it's not even about counting anything anymore, right? So we need to be careful with this context and say, no, money is a context that is relevant for every kid. Well, wait. Sometimes there might be kids that maybe didn't see money. It happens a similar thing with the analog clock, right? Many kids these days, they haven't seen an analog clock unless you have one in your classroom. There are many homes, for instance, my home, I don't have an analog clock. So don't expect every kid to just recognize an analog clock,
Yeah.
right? Because it's a part of their reality, because it might not be that the case. So be mindful of that.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay, I had a little more here. We have 10 minutes, so I think we're good. Three, affirming math learners' identities, right? So this is about building confidence. This is about the attitude, right? The persistence, the mistakes. Please invite mistakes to the conversation. Mistakes need to be seen as a learning opportunity. You made a mistake, great. This is a learning opportunity, right? That doesn't mean that we always allow mistakes in any situation and we're relaxing our accuracy. No,
Hmm.
but it means allowing the kids to see mistakes as a learning source and recognizing different forms of mathematical competence. There are kids that in a traditional number sense setting don't have the same strengths as their classmates, but then you change the subject and you go to geometry and they have the chance to be very good at that content, right? So if you keep seeing mathematical competence in a broader way, and it's not just computation, not just calculation, you're also seeing that as an opportunity for those students that might not be as skilled in number sense to also have their moment of mathematical glory, right? Everyone deserves in their education a moment of mathematical glory in where you discover something, right? And you celebrate that discovery. And this connects
Albert,
to, oh, sorry. Yeah, no,
go
I can
ahead.
talk forever. So please cut me.
No, I just wanted to make the connection between the two as well, because we know that the Universal Design for Learning also put emphasis on identity as part of variability, right? And so the value of interdependence and collective learning is going to be part of that learning much about the mathematics, so the centering and affirming and sustaining our learners interest and identities is also huge in terms of our students really embracing the mathematics in the classrooms.
And if we value that, they will see it because through the feedback that we give to them, they will see that we value also this diversity and this their identities. So they will start to blossom in a much richer way in the classroom and feel that they are part of the conversation.
Yeah.
I had a very short example. We're not doing it, and it's a very very simple example, but it opens the door to this agency and that kids that can choose, identify which expression or representation, sorry, is easiest for you, and use it to subtract 76 minus 9.
Mm.
So here we're opening the doors to kids that just are okay just subtracting 9 from 76, but we're also opening the door to reflect around breaking the 9 in a way that we go and make a 10, right? And go through the 70. So we put two different strategies, one in front of the other, and have the conversation with the kid. Which one do you feel is easier and why? And there is no right or wrong answer. It's an opinion, right? So that opens the door to this identity.
And identity here too, Albert, is also asking them how they will subtract 9 from 76. Because again, my Filipino approach, right? It's not like that. It's not using the number line. And so affirming, right? Valuing those multiple ways of knowing and making meaning and showcasing is again valued in that space.
Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Well, this is the tip. Number 4, challenging spaces of marginality,
Mhm.
right? Inviting voices that are often excluded. Distributing authority. When we asked what is teaching towards social justice to you at the beginning of the session, some people in the audience were asking, were answering about distributing authority, right? And promoting the participation and treating cultural knowledge as a source, right? And this really connects to engagement and meaningful mathematics in the UDL framework,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So here, for instance, we have this almost the last example, right? And we will be closing. So Jaden and Sierra are spending the day at the Science Museum. There are two parking lots, right? This is for older grades, right? That we have been seeing. So there are two parking lots. There is the green lot garage and the blue one, the city park. And here we could, and now we won't open the conversation, but we could ask them, what do you prefer and why? Right? And inviting everyone to at least have a choice, right? And maybe when we want these typically marginalized voices to participate, we can intentionally invite them to the conversation or create the groups in a way that these voices are also listened, right? I'm very these days I'm advocating a lot for what Peter suggests in his building thinking classroom book of doing random groups so that the kids don't feel that they are labeled beforehand, right? That no, I am in the weak group or I am in the strong group or I am the weaker in my group. No, the group was random. So everyone is invited to the conversation. Again, this is not magic that every kid suddenly will participate, but it invites them to participate more. So eventually, some of the kids say, no, this is pretty obvious that I prefer the cheapest one. But then you come with this surprise. Oh, I'm sorry. We didn't read the complete sign of the parking lot. Right? And there's this moment of amusement. Oh, I forgot to tell you that there's a flat rate, which probably might not be a concept that some of the kids know. So that could open a conversation on what is a flat rate. And then
Mhm.
these we're thinking about older grades in which this concept might be interesting from an algebraic perspective and functions perspective. So we start discussing more and more. And this could be a full hour of discussion and inviting them to make their choices, right? And of course, you all know where we're going to some graphs and see, right? At some point, one of them will be cheaper or one of them will be more expensive. And I'm sorry that I am burning these stages, but you all know where this is going, right? So there's a flat rate. So, okay, the green one was better, but at some point, because of the flat rate being higher, at some point, then the blue one becomes better. So there is both answers are correct. The blue one is better depending on on the amount of hours that you want to park, and the green one is better depending on the amount of hours that you want to park. So this connects, and I'm going back for a second to this question, which was looking very simple. It's really powerful to have a situation in which the answer depends because this invites everyone to the conversation. If you keep doing this type of activities in which the answer at the end depends on what you consider, this is really powerful to invite these kids that typically feel under or not confident enough to answer because they feel that they might not know the right answer. There is no right answer. Both answers are correct depending on the time in this case.
And Albert, can you go back to the problem again? I would like to
Absolutely.
use my hat as an English learner.
Yes.
And so in the problem, go back one slide more,
Here. Yes.
accessing the word, and this is just for me, um, spending the day, right? Parking lots, and then $3 per hour are things that could be in the context of my culture and my background could also be um, given ahead of time or probably provided some context in the culture where students are coming from, because yes, and we have these, and it could also be something where a story in terms of their experience with visiting a museum, and oftentimes maybe a number of them haven't even visited a museum, right? So even haven't
Which
experienced
is an opportunity to talk
parking.
about visiting museums. Yeah.
Correct. An opportunity to, if they are not familiar, what might be, as again, I'm using my hat as a teacher, how might I utilize the same context to get where my students are at in terms of the ability to choose, make sense, and apply in the next slide the idea of flat rate, right?
Absolutely. Which to me,
Yeah.
it was hard to understand flat rate
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
an English learner perspective as well, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, this is great, and how this allows these kids to bring their experience to the table and say, oh, well, I've never seen a ticket from a parking, and maybe you can bring some real tickets from
Yeah.
parkings
Yeah.
and have that conversation. And this is
Perfect.
connected to the first one, which was go deep, don't hesitate to go deep and have that conversation, because this is part of the learning. This is not a
Yeah.
trade-off. This is
Yeah.
part of the learning. Okay, so, and the last one, it's beautiful because we're almost done. We're 2 minutes to go. But the last one is drawing on multiple knowledge sources, which is what we were just saying, and which connects beautifully to
Mm.
the triangles that we did at the beginning. And this closes the circle, right? And you were asking the audience, how did you feel about the story? Where did you connect the story with your
Mhm.
personal life, right? And what moments? And you have said that you have seen in your even in your professional life that people takes groups, right? And goes in groups instead of mixing and sharing experiences. Sometimes we feel more comfortable with our kind of people. So this connects with what we were saying at the beginning, and closes um, this idea of where have you seen these shapes
Mhm.
before? What do they remind you in real life? These shapes and this situation.
Mhm.
Okay. Whew.
So before that, Albert, because I know
Absolutely.
we are ending this one, I'd like that to present these challenge to all of us, right? That I know
Yes.
that this presentation is going to be a continued reinvigoration of a long road, right? With
Yes.
learning and relearning practices that promote self-empowerment and social transformation. So I really challenge all of us as to how we can bring this back to our roles, whether we are administrators, teachers, coaches, community partners. This is something where we can think once again how we can elevate the voices of our students and, of course, cultivate that joyful mathematics with them.
And I cannot add anything else to that beautiful feeling at the end. Just reminding you that we have an upcoming session, 5 out of 6, with Cecilia Dimas. We will be talking about assessment, in which these ideas of the social justice that we have been discussing will play a big role as well, right? How do we assess and make sure that everyone feels valued through our assessment and it's valuable feedback for them? We're also coming to see you in person, right? We're opening a series of lunch and learns in June, in which we will be visiting you in person if you want us, and we will be helping you interpret and spreading the word around the framework and all the ideas that we have been discussing here. And I think we'll see each other again next Thursday, right? With Cecilia. And I want to finish thanking you a lot, Ma Bernadette, for joining us and
Thank
helping us
you.
give some light and some ideas on how to teach the word social justice. I hope you had fun. I had a lot of fun. I loved how you read the story, and I loved all the insights that you brought to the table.
You.
And
Thank
let's
you so
see.
much, everyone.
Yeah, everyone is saying thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you in the chat. I love it. All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so see you next week. Thank you, Ma Bernadette. I hope I'll see you in person soon enough in California.
I'll
Sunny
be in New York.
California. Oh yeah, you'll be coming to New York, which
I'll
is
be
it's
flying to New
getting
York
cold. It's
tomorrow,
getting
so
cold.
hope to see you
Bring
in
your
New York.
bring
Yes,
your raincoat. Bring your raincoat.
I will.
See you soon, Ma Bernadette. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
everyone in the
much.
audience.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.